What is up, y'all, and welcome to Impromptu Debate You, the show where we have conversations on the fly. And all right, I hope everyone is doing fantastic. Please don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, all of the things that I hear in my sleep. I am sending love out to you. If you hit that bell icon to all, it allows you to see premieres, join our live streams. I can say hello to everyone. Like, what is up, Moon Shoes? What is up, Spooky? What is up, It's a Rubik's? Ooh, I hope you are all having a lovely, lovely morning, afternoon, even a night. What is up, Jessica? Woohoo! And so I am gonna probably do my shout outs and all of that at the end, or you know what, I'll just do them really quick. Sending love out to the people who keep the stream on, all of our lovely supporters, and you can send in super chats, you can join our evolving badge system membership, you can become a Patreon at patreon.com/avnewman, but also sending love to Azo, Chris Disciple, Dale Pastel, Dave Gar, Rachel, Ian Davenport, and Rejos, and everyone out there. And all right, I am going to quickly jump on. I don't know if this is actually going to be a hostile conversation. I just wanted to start recording them when people ask me to have them. I often ask if I can record or not, and they said I could. And so I am heading over there. But keep on saying hi. I'll try and show your name up on screen. And sending love also to my co-host James W. I think we're planning for a stream for Thursday. But yeah, I think with that, I am going to jump into it, and please just tell me if the sound is all right. I got my tongue. You got your tongue removed? Oh my. Well, I hope you're having a good time today anyway. I am sending my heart out to you. All right, let's jump into it. Like I said, you have to. Gotcha. Well, I hope everything is okay, Rubik's. I am sending love out to you. At least we have science. Yeah, like Moonshoe says, I'm sorry to hear that, but not only am I sending you love out there, I know you got the love of the entire Skeptic and Ranting community. All right, I am setting up. I am about to go down to this little channel that he had set up. See, the funny thing is, and this will be the last thing I say, I always joke because I start in these theological channels trying to debate God, and I do think the topic of our era, whether I want to admit it or not, seems to be being LGBTQ, specifically being transgender. And I couldn't have predicted that 20 years ago when they said I was the new thing, or we're the new thing, or whatever. But it's okay. This person, like I said, I don't want to be too negative because this person seemed like they could have been a good person. So let me not preamble. Let's just get into the fun. They have. Huh. They have also, if you don't mind me, they have switched StreamYard on. Where? There you go. Thank you, thank you. Oh, lovely nasal sounds. All right. I think I am sharing audio properly. Let's get into it and have some fun. Oh, not the right one. Oh. Did I click it? Nothing goes easy. We wouldn't want this to go easy. I had his number. It was just sitting there the whole time I was waiting it. I double clicked it and it disappeared. There we go. I just saw him. Okay, here we go.
Yo, hello, Miss
Miss Amy,
was
Miss
it?
Newman. My joke is always just don't call me late for dinner. I'm going to push the key though.
Yeah, I don't want to get late to dinner because food is awesome.
Yes, it is.
Anyways, thank you very much for talking to me and taking your time. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
This was something very spontaneous, so I don't really have any specific expectations, to be honest with you. But yeah, basically, I can give you a little background on myself. I'm a 25-year-old guy from Iraq, raised in Sweden most of my life, agnostic. And yeah, I keep hearing people yapping so much about transgenderism. So I thought, hey, why not talk to someone who identifies as that? So I thought, hey, let's talk to Amy.
Woo-hoo. Absolutely. Well, it is an honor to have a conversation with you. I think we've talked a little bit in chat. I do think that this does seem to be a very important topic. It's funny that I've been doing this for a little while, and yet it doesn't seem as popular as it ever has been. They seem to really want to put a focus on us, and I think that it's good to actually talk about it, because then we can, get rid of misconceptions and stuff.
Absolutely, I think that's a good thing. And on my part, I'm coming in here with a blank slate or state, however you say it.
Sure.
I don't really think of transgenderism or transgender people at all, pretty much in my life. I just see people talking about it a lot, and yeah, I'm just curious. I want to learn more about it, and that's pretty much my intention with all this, just to gain knowledge.
Sure. Well, I do want to appreciate you for being just so cordial, because I will say, especially in the debate community, it can get very spicy about this subject. But I would say that being LGBTQ fundamentally is about being who you are in either sexuality and gender. And I think there are other people that may fit maybe a little non-standard definitions, and I would still hold them under the umbrella and they can party too. But I would say that's what tends to be the focus on. So you have LGB being your how you express yourself in sexuality. There are other things, pansexual, asexual, but then when it comes to being transgender, it's generally about feeling, I would say, on a scale from masculine to feminine. I would say that you could feel many different ways, from all the way masculine to all the way feminine to slightly masculine to, I would argue, even something completely in the center, which we would almost call gender neutral. Sometimes we would just call this androgynous, or, sharing features of both. And oh, yep, did you have a question? Or
No, I was just humming like to
oh,
signal that I'm following along.
gotcha. So I would then put a stress on, within the past, I would say since the 60s or 70s, psychologists, sociologists have understood that there has been a difference between sex and gender, and from these differences, the separation from sex meaning to correlate with biology, that is to say, we're all born with a specific set of gonads, we're all born with a specific set of chromosomes, but then we have this social makeup within society that doesn't really have. Oh, sorry, you're gonna hear my cat scratching. I apologize. Apologize.
That's completely fine. I love cats.
They rule the internet. And so you have the separation, and some individuals don't match the social correlation that is normally aligned to them. That is to say that we have these things like, we could say the skirt is a girl's skirt, but technically speaking, there's no chromosomes on the skirt. It can fit whoever it's going to fit. And so what we have done is we have said that certain things just socially are feminine and masculine. We more often name ships after girls' names. That just tends to be what happens. Does that mean that you can't name your ship Fred or Ahmed? No, you could call your ship whatever you want. It's just that we culturally tend to name it more feminine names. It's almost the same of calling things an action figure or a doll. Even if these terms are created in marketing, they are pop up out of the cultural zeitgeist. And so I would say that being transgender is acknowledging, because we often get flack, you think you change your sex, or you defy science or biology. No, it's acknowledging you can't change your sex, but you have these social things that they would be subjective. I mean, I like dresses. Is that an objective truth of reality? Well, no. It's subjective to me, but I would say it's as truthful to me as me also liking chocolate and peanut butter ice cream. Like, it may not be written on my gonads, it's in my neurology. So I've been
exactly.
rambling a little bit. Does that, oh, okay. And so it truly is, I would say, also born out of a framework. In many cultures right now, there are two buckets. There is man and woman. And I would say being transgender, going through the process, and I'll talk about that a little bit if you want to, is oftentimes the easiest way. I hate to use this word, but the way that we assimilate back into society is we are signaling to society that, hey, our gender, we actually like the more feminine or the more masculine one. And that's just the way I'm going to be living my life. And so by signaling, it makes things easier, because most people don't want to challenge. When they see you, they just want to go, hello, how are you? And most people say your day was fine, and you get on with life. And so it makes the pleasantries of working and living with people that much easier, as if the opposite were true, which is, I think, what the people who are sometimes pushing, saying, we're pushing stereotypes. You're just telling me that a woman is a dress. Well, no, I'm not saying that a woman is a dress, or that if you don't wear a dress, you're not a woman. It's that I would argue is that we're honestly just trying to make living in society easier. But most people who wear dresses identify as the feminine, as a woman.
Yeah.
So do you want to sit there and figure out if someone who looks like a woman actually wants to be he, him pronouns, which I think would be very rare. I've never met someone. Well, there are femboys and people like that, but no one who identified as transgender, who truly has gone to the other side of the spectrum, who wanted to be called by these postmodern, I would argue, ways of looking at it. I would argue sometimes the fundamentalists, the people who don't like transgenders, just say, stop pushing these stereotypes. You can just be a feminine man. You can just be a masculine woman. And then, no offense to them, they treat feminine men and masculine women terrible. Like, they are way more at home in the LGBTQ. A femboy, I would argue, even, is way more at home in the LGBTQ community than I would say the fundamentalist religious household, who is going to be pushing this quote unquote, I hate this term. I use it. I understand what they mean, but traditional gender, whatever. Because if we're just going by traditional gender, whatever, I think that would argue in my favor. That's you just looking at what most people do and saying, arguably, this has to be the way. Well, I'm not saying this has to be the way. I'm just saying this is what people do. And so can't we all just get along? Use a she, her, a he, him if someone identifies. I mean, I get it if someone's being rude to you. I think sometimes the situation is like, well, this transgender is coming up to me and they're demanding, they're spitting in my face and they're going, you better call me a she, her, or I'm going to get you fired. Well, it's like clearly that person is, being a bee or whatever. Like that. But they have deeper issues than being transgender at that point. You know what I mean? That's a character flaw. And so I think if someone is coming up to you and all they're saying is just, listen, I just want to be called this. It just makes my life easier. I think we should offer them the respect. I guess I'll truly ask again if you have any more questions. My final note is that it truly isn't. It is less a conversation about biology than I think that it often should be. I think what they want to do is talk about, I say they, the people who do dislike transgenders, is they want to talk about it as if it is a completely biological issue. And I would say that if you do that, you almost miss the entire point, because no one, or almost no one, the world's big. There's going to go someone out there that says, yeah, I transitioned and I changed my chromosomes, probably. But 99% of transgenders are just saying, hey, we know what we were born, but we naturally feel this way. We just feel either masculine or feminine. Can't we all just get along?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you to a very large extent, especially the part about just living together and respecting each other. Like it really doesn't take that much effort to have basic respect, honestly.
I agree.
But some people don't get that, unfortunately.
Well, and the way that it comes across politically is that we are forcing. I'm somehow getting everyone fired by just being transgender. And it's like, I just don't see that. I think, in fact, historically, and again, this is just my feelings, I don't have sources for this, but it happened to me in my life, we used to get judged way harder. It used to be harder to get into the workforce. It used to be, I mean, it was terrifying for me to come out to my parents. There was a time about a decade ago, and I really do mean that, 10 or years less, I started getting from the people who dislike me, oh, it must be such a great life that you're transgender because you're the top of the identity politics ladder. I'm like, okay.
What does that even mean?
I exactly. And so they have it in their head that I am riding high on top of the liberals. I'm just a transgender, and so everyone, on this side of the aisle just agrees with whatever I say, and just, I don't know. And my parents were excited that I came out, and everyone threw me a transgender reveal party, and just, I'm being hyperbolic on that. But,
yeah, I get you.
Do make it seem like I won something. And for most of my life, let me tell you, it was the opposition. It was like, I didn't want to come out like this because I thought my parents were going to throw me out of my house. Of course, my mom did the very honorable thing at the end and said, no, I just, I was more, I wanted you to tell me, lying was the bigger thing to me than you not telling me or whatever, which is, I think that's the right answer. But I don't find many LGBTQ people that were like, I was arguing with my parents and then I came out as transgender and it just went peachy. And so it's generally a hurdle, and I would say one that I want to make easier. If the other side, and again, the other side is just people who dislike transgenders, made a society in which I could just be my sex with my gender, and yet there's somehow just one label, and I don't know, whatever version they want, where everything gets along cool. But what it seems like they want is, we want traditional gender norms, quote unquote, but we also want you to stop feeling the way we want you to feel, as in you should feel that traditional gender norm. It's like, but I'm never going to feel that way. Yeah, I like video games and stuff that maybe stereotypically guys drift towards a little bit more. But like, I think everyone has that. Everyone's going to have a mix. Everyone's going to have a little bit of this and that. And I just think, yeah, we lean so much heavier in the opposite direction. It makes our lives easier. I think it makes the straight heterosexual ally people's, time easier.
Yeah. I'm really sorry for whatever discrimination you might have faced and difficulties. Like for me, I'm just I don't know what I think they call it, cisgendered guy. I'm
Can
straight.
I pause you for 1 second? Because there's like I don't want to say an internal debate, because there isn't, but I have like an internal debate in my head. Cis is the right word. I'll tell you why I use biological. I use biological because cis is not a great term in the marketing department. Okay, can I tell you something completely abstract? Okay,
Sure.
Is that cisgender means that you were born in the sex and the gender that you feel aligned with. I get told this all the time by people on the other side. Oh, I hate this word. It's like popping a zit and all this. And I don't know. I don't know how to feel other than I use biological to try and emphasize, and they tend to not throw so much of a scuffle than when I use that word. I swear the right is very good. And again, I'm moderate centrist, or I tend to be, but like, they were able to turn woke around. I'm still trying to use the original version of woke. They're trying to tell me I'm a snowflake for doing so. I'm like, it's survival. But yes, and so that's just an asterisk, because the word game is sometimes important. I'll tell you why the word game is important, because they'll make sentences like, well, do you really want men beating up on women? And then you go, well, no, I just want transgender women and biological women to play in the same sport if the weight and hormone requirements allow it to, if it's fair. And then that doesn't sound as catchy as men beating women. Does that make sense? And so even though it's a very nuanced discussion, they are very good at using language to make people emotional.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, I identify as a biological male, I guess, and
and you can use cis. Now I feel like I almost did the same thing backwards to you. Don't use cis. No.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, I'm a cis guy. I'm straight. I'm like the majority of people. So
sure.
I've never experienced any of the discrimination or harassment that one might get as a transgender person.
And I'll be honest with you, I can relate with you in a way, but different. Okay,
How
It's a
so?
completely different subject, but it's related. So I am very pale. Okay, I'm see through. Okay, like
I see.
now it wasn't until I was about 18, 19, 20, which I really went deep on the internet and started arguing with people or talking to people. And it was the first time that I ever was told that I wasn't white because my parents are Jewish. And
That's interesting.
I had never felt racism before. It was like a
Mm.
completely, I don't know if it's even racism. There's a prejudice because it's not really a race, but that's a whole nother debate. I don't want to get in a tangent either. But like it's weird in that I can turn that prejudice off almost by turning my computer off. Does that make sense? I've never felt, no one has ever said anything anti Semitic to me in real life. No one's ever said, when I bring up race, like I talk to my partner and I argue over the race thing, like, should I put white? Should I even put? Because I hate the concept. And my partner looks at me and is like, lady, you are so white that mayonnaise looks tanner than you. And I'm like, I don't know. And so it's just this weird thing that, yeah, I've never experienced it. And yet it's just, it's in the chat rooms above, but nowhere else.
Oh yeah, yeah. But like, uh, if we're gonna like define what it means to be transgender, like in my head, I imagine,
Sure.
and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I imagine someone who, for example, was born as a guy or a girl, and they feel uncomfortable with the fact that they are either a guy or a girl, and so they would maybe want to transition to the other sex, perhaps. Is that am I kind of
Sure. I
am
feel
I
like
on the way there,
so
or
if
how
you
would
were
you?
getting in a debate with the gender people, they would nitpick on your language, but basically what you said is not too far. That is basically the thing. So it is someone who is a very specific sex, either male, female. We could get into intersex, but generally male, female, and then they feel a different gender than what is normally correlated. Most males feel masculine, so they have the male, the man gender. The
Yeah,
reason that be a man, I can show you why be a man is a social construct. You can even use the phrase, go be a man. Well, what does be a man mean? Is there like a be a man meter that we can measure? It means something a little bit different than to everyone else. But we don't say, come on, go be a male. Does that make sense?
yeah,
And
for sure.
so it is this concept of we're never changing our sex, but if you're just giving us masculine and feminine buckets in society, which is, I would argue, not only just Western society, I would argue many of the Abrahamic religion societies, the Middle Eastern societies, they have two buckets, male, female,
For sure,
or
for sure.
masculine, feminine. So the way for us, even Nessie, now even I'm using it, the way that we assimilate, the way that we go back to functioning in society, because I want to talk about another thing, mental illness, because that gets thrown around a lot. The word
Oh yeah,
mental illness, and mental illness, as far as I can tell from sociological and psychological standards, is about something very specific, and it is having a delusion or a disorder in such a manner that you are unable to function. I often use the joke, if you believe that you are Napoleon, you are not mentally ill if you can function in society. If you
that's interesting.
believe that you are Napoleon and it causes you to no longer be able to function, you are mentally ill.
That's an important distinction.
It is indeed. It means that you can be deluded without being mentally ill, because mentally ill is truly this thing that is getting in the way of your life. I'll show you where it can be attached to transgender. Being transgender is not a mental illness. If being transgender is such that is getting in the way of you functioning in society, then that transgender person needs to seek help because they are mentally ill. The goal of therapy is to help them get to a point where they can again function, which means the goal is not to have them stop being transgender. The goal is just to have them a functioning member of society.
Yeah. I think another important distinction we should make is whether or not the harm or trouble which is caused to the person either comes from society or from the quote unquote illness itself. Because as with
Sure.
transgender people, many of the issues they face do not really come from the fact that they identify with a different gender. It's more so the backlash that society gives them and the harassment and
I
discrimination.
agree. It could be.
And
Oh no,
that would
go.
not make them ill in my point of view. That would not make them mentally ill for what society does to them.
I absolutely agree. And there's actually two things that could be going on. There is one, it could be that there is something completely different going on, as in maybe they were abused, maybe something truly terrible did go on, that something needs to be sussed out or deciphered that has nothing to do with being transgender that they have to work on. Or maybe it's because they're in an environment in which, their their father, mother, whoever, just using this made up example, is saying, "Well, be a man," and all they want to do is be the opposite. And so,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
there's all these other pressures that are being applied, and that is truly where I think that a good therapist has to come in. And I think that it's worth the extra legwork. I know that's another misconception, not saying it happens, but they think in the West it's a rubber stamp, just boom, 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 boom. But a good therapist is actually going out of their way to truly figure out what's going on. Because then when you have a diagnosis, there is a diagnosis. I think most transgender people do, or at one point, suffered from gender dysphoria. I I would argue that I no longer suffer from gender dysphoria. I
Mm.
would argue that at a certain point in my life, I don't think that my brain matched my body or my mind matched what I was looking at. I think it does now. Like, I'm
That's
not.
great. I'm happy for you.
Well, thank you. I was so incredibly focused on surgery before I transitioned. Like, I was hyper focused on it. It wasn't until I could fully commit to getting surgery that I even was able to transition. I had all of these notions, and yet once I actually got on hormones and was full time and got to look the way I wanted to and people treated me the way I wanted to, I this is the way I want to look. I feel very happy. I would almost relate it to other struggles that straight biological people are going through. Is you don't realize it at the time, but finding who you are, it is actually kind of the story of being human.
Definitely. Would you say that you um so from what I gather so far, you seem to identify as a female, correct?
Yes, indeed. I would even say I am a male to female.
And with that being said, would you still this is maybe a bad question, I don't know. Would you
That's
s- would you
okay.
would you say that you are a woman in a biological sense or in an objective sense?
No, it's a good question because I think that I would say that it's where we have to be very specific about the terms. I would say I was born a male and I have a woman gender.
I see. Yeah. Because I think you mentioned, for example, how trans people who are transphobic, they use labels like, they call you guys mentally ill or that you're deluded.
Indeed.
And I think that comes from them assuming that transgender people, in fact, believe that they are their new gender.
Yes,
I don't
can
know if that
I?
made any
No,
sense.
no, it did. Because can I tell you why that isn't a accident or a coincidence? It almost sounds a little conspiratorial when I frame it like this, but the leaders of the right in America know what they're doing. They are not, I would argue, transphobic. They are techno billionaires and libertarians who look at themselves and go, "Oh, these religious crazy people are going to eat this up." Tell them men get pregnant, and they'll go wild. And that is what I think happens. I think these think tanks sit there because I'll tell you what I didn't create, what I didn't pick. I didn't pick the battle in the bathroom. I didn't pick the battle in the locker room. I didn't pick the battle in sports. They did. We
Mm,
fought for gay marriage. We fought for transgenders in the military. And so what's happening is a reaction to just us being accepted in life. We were accepted, and what happened is you have these different avenues within life that I would say the reactionaries were able to pick up and say, this is our new fight. And the great irony is I now need to debate all of those subjects while they tell me that all I care about is identity politics.
that's a profound point. That's a very interesting thing you mentioned.
Yeah, it is crazy in that I've been transitioning 18, 19, 20 years, something like that. When I first came out, they told me it was the hot thing. You got to take your licks, as in like get made fun of comedians and all this, which I think is true. That is how you be accepted in society. It's a new thing. Jerry Springer was hot and all this. Get through this and we'll be accepted by society. And in fact, even within the LGBT community, I swear we were looking at each other going, what's the next game? Well, we already got gays and transgenders. Is it going to be asexuals? Is it going to be intersex people? What's the next thing that's going to be protected by us? And the answer is we're going to play the hits. We're just going
Yeah,
to go backwards. We're going to, you wanted trans? Well, you're going to keep on getting trans. And I'm in this weird situation in which if you were to ask me if I was if I focused on transgender subjects in the debate circle, I would have probably told you no. In fact, I would almost be like, gosh darn it, I'm a transgender woman, but I care about other things, gosh darn it. I care about religion and I care about, I'm doing all these things in academia and information technology and education. And yet it hasn't slowed. Me not caring about identity politics has not slowed the roll to them caring about it.
right.
And so it's almost like I have been becoming an ambassador because if I don't, then it truly is going to be. And actually, there's a lot of great. I don't want to just say on the other. There's some great sending love out there to the line, who does the transatlantic and all their stuff. But it does feel like the reactionaries were becoming a much louder voice. And so I feel like we do have to have these conversations, or it's only going to be the other side, quote unquote, other side. That's the other thing that I dislike is you get put in a box as a transgender. You have to listen. Not only am I liberal, I'm becoming more liberal probably every day because of the government that I have in this country. But like, you do get put in a box. They tell you have to be this. You got to be this. I get told I am a Democrat. I get told I am all these things, and I'm a liberal, and I vote for liberals and all this. But it is very odd that the people who say why should we shouldn't even be putting people in boxes, they love themselves a box.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's so true. Like I've experienced that myself in other ways, but yeah, like
I can only imagine.
unfortunately, it's so difficult. Like having people forcing their boxes upon you, kind of, even though you don't want to place yourself
No,
in one.
indeed.
Yeah, it sucks. I'm. I just realized there is one fear that I have that I would like to share with you. So
Sure.
I fear that. How should I phrase this? I'm afraid that you, as someone who identifies as transgender, has to justify themselves for others. Meaning, when I, for example, come and ask you about all these things and want to talk to you and then understand what transgenderism means, I fear that that might place a kind of burden on you in the sense that, oh, now I have to justify myself to this guy. What's your thoughts on that? Is that a reasonable fear to have?
Sure. I would say you're a nice person even for considering those type of thoughts. I would argue that this is where I'm going to get really woke on you for a second. I would argue this is where terms and things like privilege come. Because
Hmm.
I would argue that in the same way, like I never experienced racism until I was 20, I would argue I had a privilege. I only understood it in terms of history books, in terms of other people, and it felt invisible. This is also why I think some certain people don't understand racism, sexism, misogyny, all of these types of things. And I don't want it to make it sound condescending, but until it happens to you, oftentimes a lot of people have a hard time empathizing with it. This is why it's not until someone has a gay son that they suddenly are like, you know what, I am for gay marriage because I want grandkids. And so it's not until it happens to them, but you shouldn't. Here's the thing, it wasn't you personally who you didn't put this, I don't want to call it a burden or whatever. I'm trying to think of a word. And so as nice and appreciative as you're being, you shouldn't have the opposite. I know they oftentimes they call things like white guilt and all these other words that
Right.
don't give yourself I'm trying to think of the proper term. Um don't beat yourself up for something that you didn't do. Instead, just be an ally. Be there for people when they need you. Listen, like you have been amazing, and that
Thank you.
really is all you can do. Is just listen and defend people. Whether that's being transgender, I would argue I could. This conversation could be opened up to whether we're talking about people with disabilities, veterans. It's just doing the right thing, being a good person.
Yeah, yeah. The reason why I have this fear in the first place is because I have sort of experienced it in some other way. Because once upon a time, I used to be a Muslim, and as
Sure.
someone who is Muslim in I would say, atheist majority country like Sweden, people tend to be very curious when they find out that you're Muslim. They ask you a lot of questions. They ask you like, okay, why are you Muslim? Um, is it true that you guys believe in this and that and blah blah blah? And that for me was kind of a burden. I felt like I had to constantly justify my beliefs for others. I felt like I was some kind of ambassador for Islam, even though I'm not. But it kind of becomes like that automatically because we're a minority.
Interesting.
Uh, and I fear that you might feel the same thing, but from a transgender perspective. Does that make any sense?
Oh, it absolutely does. I am interested in the ex-Muslim experience because I've watched from like a afar, but I can only imagine what that's like. I have a weird time being an ex-Jew. I argue with people because people don't want me to no longer be Jewish. It is a very,
Yeah.
very weird phenomena. What I've noticed with Muslims, and you could tell me if I'm wrong, but I've noticed that the Western side of life is very happy. They very much don't they view a lot of Islam, especially to the moderate to the right, as a invading type of religious force. So they very much like ex-Muslims. However, I find that it's very dangerous to be an ex-Muslim. That is the way
Um,
that they market it.
I mean, in some sense, yes, and in some sense, no. I don't know what to tell you, really. It's okay, yeah. On the whole, in general, yes, I would say it's dangerous. I mean, you kind of have a almost like a death sentence looming over you, like it or not. Me personally, I
Oh,
don't
I
choose
get
to
you.
let it affect my life. Like, if someone's gonna kill me for leaving Islam, then fine. Like, life is not worth living if I'm gonna live in constant fear. I'd rather just be myself, be open about it, and if I get killed for it, I'll just
Capy,
be a
can I?
Yeah, yeah, that's
No,
fine. Go
no,
on.
just that sentence you're saying. I feel like we could not agree more. I feel like if you just replace the underlying thing that you were saying it for, I mean, yeah, I couldn't agree.
Yeah, like I would basically be a martyr for my own beliefs, which is freedom and liberalism, and I'd happily die for that. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
I don't think you truly believe in something until you're willing to die for it. And
I'll put the
well,
asterisk. I don't want to die for it, but I will.
yeah, yeah, that's true. I mean, it's not like I'm suicidal. I do actually want to live, but yeah, absolutely.
but
Yeah,
but it's true. What's the point of living an entire life in fear? You might as well enjoy life. I think that the forces, the same people who would hurt you are the same people. Not to tie it back in like this weird circle. How do you feel about this as a agnostic atheist? I have focused on religion for the past 2 decades because I have felt that if I were to talk, I could sit here and talk about being transgender every day, all day for years. And I don't think it'd be as effective as getting rid of transgender hate as attacking religion. as a year's worth of attacking religion. Because I oddly think that religion is the seed that gives a lot of these social woes. It's not the liberal Muslims or liberal Jews or Christians that, come up to me and tell me I'm the wrong gender. It's the fundamentalists. And the fundamentalists of every stripe, it says it in a book. We're going to do it in a book. And you're lucky we're not stoning you.
yep, yep. Just so I understand you, if I followed along your reasoning, you mean that it's more effective to combat religious dogma rather than fighting transphobes. Did I get that right?
Yes,
Kind of.
180 billion%. Listen, like I said, I have come to accept myself being an ambassador for the subject because I think we need it. And I have come to like and even enjoy debating the subject. Nonetheless, I think religion, it's like we're chopping at the leaves, and yet religion is the seed of why they're acting like this. Like, there's always going to be turfs, exclusionary radical feminists, the hyper super so edge of the left that they've somehow come back around, because they're the ones saying we want this giant postmodern world. But those same fundies that hate me are probably the same fundies, especially if they're you know of your old religious group, that
Yeah,
dislike
they
you.
hate me as well, for sure, for sure.
And so if we were to just get rid of that religion, they wouldn't
Yep.
care about any of that.
With that being said, have you ever experienced any harassment from? I mean, maybe it's hard to figure out what someone believes in, but like, have you ever experienced harassment from, say, atheists or yeah, like atheist liberals, or has it always been religious people from your experience?
So I would say it's vast majority religious people. The world's a big place. I know that Pine Creek comes to mind. I've been trying to win him over forever. They're like, I don't want to call him an ally to the religious in that, because sometimes it feels more like he's just making jokes about us and the religious are serious about it, if that makes sense. But yeah, there's always going to be the ability to have it separated because it is a political thing. But the trans TERFs, I don't want to keep on saying the acronym. The TERFs tend to lean liberal.
Right.
And yet I do think that the vast majority, 80 to 90%, come from religious fundies.
Interesting. I had a conversation yesterday with a woman. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it because it's related to this. So she's a woman in her 40s. I met her on this server, and she was telling us about how she was like working at a gym which is women only, and she was complaining about the fact that there were transgender people, male to female specifically, who would sign up to this gym because apparently it made the women there feel unsafe, because they're like, yeah, just because you identify as a woman doesn't mean that you're welcome in our space, basically. What's your thoughts on this?
I would argue for the transgender side, and I'll tell you why. I very much want to protect biological women. What I don't want to do is throw transgender people under the bus in what I would argue, to use their language, would be virtue signaling and not addressing anything. The biological women felt uncomfortable. Were they actually in a situation that was dangerous? No.
Probably not, if I had to guess.
I think that biological women and transgender women want to have different spaces because the vast majority of physical violence comes from the straight male. Excuse me. Sponsored by coffee.
You're good.
Straight male heterosexual men who cause these events. They target us, I would argue, just as much as biological
exactly
women. And
I was gonna say that, like, you don't hear about male to female transgender people who go around assaulting people. Like, no,
exactly.
I've never heard that happen.
Yeah,
sorry, female to male.
But it's be like, yeah, we're known for being sent to prison and ruling the place, right? Yeah, we're not very violent. Well, again, there's always going to be people that break this rule. Like, every once in a while, someone will show me a transgender person that did a school shooting. And then you go, oh, okay, well, how many transgender people do school shootings? And you find out it's less than 1%. So 99% were from straight men.
Yep.
And so it's not that I don't want to keep biological women safe. I would argue that by keeping transgender women and biological women safe, you are doing that.
Right. Would it be fair to say that the fear that these women have is unjustified, perhaps, or unreasonable?
It's one of two things: unreasonable or political. Could be both. But I can't tell you if it's someone who is just, and people on the left have this too, but some people are just going to go, look, I am a reactionary social conservative. They want me to be anti-abortion. They want me to be anti-transgender, and that's what I'm going to be. And then you're always going to have, the other minority, like I said, these, I hate to say far left. The other thing that annoys me, because I have to admit that they are leftists, I guess, is that the people who obsess over transgenderism, I don't know why, but they really obsess over it. And I say this coming as a transgender person. It is almost odd to me. Like, I understand when you first come out, it is a major part of your life. And it should be, because you're acclimating yourself, you're getting used to all these new things. But eventually, it becomes, I would argue, boring. Like how
Mhm.
it can only be exciting for so long until eventually, it's just regular Thanksgiving again. Does that make sense? Or regular holidays.
Yeah,
And
yeah, for
so,
sure.
um, yes, I'm trying to. There's a few, I guess, controversial subjects. This would be, I would argue. Let's start with bathrooms. I think are unarguable. There's no
Mm.
reason because anyone who truly is spying on someone, male, female, transgender, doesn't matter. You should go to jail. Like there is
Sure.
no that's a made up fear because that's always going to be present. Someone could have always dressed up as a woman and tried to do nefarious things in the bathroom, and they're always going to be able to. That's what the police are for.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I bet it's already happening. Even unfortunately, like I wouldn't be surprised.
well, there's always going to be terrible people. The
Yeah, yeah.
goal is just you don't go well. And I'm not saying you're doing this. I'm saying the far crazy. Well, not crazy. Let me not call them names. The far people are saying that by allowing transgender people in, this 0.02% of the 1%. I'm trying to think how to turn this into an analogy. It,
Either way, it's an over-exaggerated issue, in my
yes.
opinion. I
In
mean,
other
from
words,
the
it's
transphobes, I mean, like they may like, why would I be bothered by? So I'm a man, right? Why would I be bothered
mhm.
by a female transition to male to pee in my space? Like, why the fuck does that make my life any worse in any way? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, and they're able to use. I use this phrase in jest, but it's their go-to. The please, please, someone save the women and children, because the two groups that they try and use as a scapegoat are women and children. We just need to save the women. We're just trying to save our children. That'll be the next subject I'll talk about. Uh, Transgender minors. They obsess over that as well. And so um, all of these subjects tend to have either nuanced or medical ways that we handle them. And it annoys me that it's even a political issue. So, speaking of transgender minors, let's start first that um, minors can't have surgery. There's always going to be situations in which that's not true. Child's appendix explodes. There's going to be situations in which you're going to have surgery, but generally speaking, the goal is not to have surgery on children, even transgender children. You want them to go through rigorous therapy, which is where you need to begin. They should be making sure, just like we were talking about before, that there's not an underlying problem. Did something go on at the household? Do you have other problems? Okay, once you've sussed out their transgender, okay, well, what age are you? 12, 13, 14, 15? Okay, well, then most likely all we're doing is puberty blockers because what we want to do is actually just extend the time for you to make a decision because a puberty blocker isn't adding any hormones. As you become older, 16, 17, 18, you're able to gain access to hormones. You continue on years and years of therapy and hormones. You then get access to surgery. That is, I would say, the general process by which it happens in Western medicine.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Uh, I'm curious about. I'm gonna let you do some psychoanalysis on me now.
Oh boy.
When I said that I was a cisgendered man, I just realized now that perhaps that may not 100% be true. I'll explain how.
Okay.
So, yes, I was born as a man, but there have been times, and there are still times when I think to myself, uh, I I would probably fit better as a woman. I think to myself at certain points. because I do have certain qualities about me that are more feminine. I'm more, I don't know, I'm not as dominant as perhaps as males might be. I don't take up much space. I'm kind of, um I'm emotional. I'm submissive. I'm all these things that are traditionally associated with feminine to be feminine
Sure.
qualities. And I think to myself, I'd probably like I would be yeah. If I was born as a woman, it would probably be more close to who I am. What's your like? How would you, I don't know, label this? How would you analyze this?
Sure.
What's your
Well,
general thoughts?
I would say that gender is a spectrum, and looking at it as an on-off switch would be the wrong way to take it. I would say that, you could be further down towards feminine than many males typically are. Now, that's not a bad thing. I would I would actually argue that um, whether you are so far down that you're a femboy or whether you're so far down that you're transgender, I would have to really, and you might have to really look on the inside to find out or explore. Um, but yeah, it means that, if we're talking 0 through 9 or 0 through 10, that you're not a 0 or a 10. But that's
Yeah,
okay. I think most people are. Can I tell you the weirdest phenomena that happens to me? And again, maybe I'm just patting
sure.
myself on the back here,
No,
but
please go
like
ahead.
the people who I find, there are two people that that flirt with me the most, okay? The people who like transgenders and the people who I start in my DMs telling me that there's no such thing as being transgender and that it's an abomination. Somehow
Oh, that's
within
interesting.
somehow within, like, I have even been told no transgenders exist, please send pics.
What? That's
And
crazy.
so you have to understand that you just might be understanding about yourself what many of the people who hate transgender people don't realize until they actually argue with one. And that is, you may not be, and it sounds like you're not, a complete one or the other. I can't tell you where you fit on the spectrum. What I can tell you is that's not crazy. That is what, in fact, I would say we're even talking about. Because, and again, I don't want to get too graphic. I don't know your life and whatever, but there's a lot of biological women out there that like to peg femboys.
I've heard so,
And
yes.
so, like, there truly is someone for everyone. And it's really just about finding out where you are, not so you can find the label, but so you can just be happy. Does that make sense?
Right. For sure, absolutely. And like I wanna say that I wouldn't go as far as to use puberty or well, I'm way past puberty, but I wouldn't go as far as to like take what's the female hormone again? Forgot the name of it.
Estrogen.
Yeah. I wouldn't go as far as to start taking estrogen or making surgery and stuff. Like I'm fine with the way I look. Like really like no issues whatsoever. But like I said, like on an emotional level or on a
Mm-hmm.
deep in my heart, like I it's like you said, I don't identify as a if male was 0 and female was 10, then I would, I don't know, 5. Hard to say. But yeah,
It might be.
it is what it is. I don't know.
No. It's the situation that you're in, and you're gonna find it out. I have a new thing. I no longer use "it is what it is." My mom loves that phrase. I'll tell you why. Because that means you're resigning yourself to it. Um, I overanalyze. You want me to overanalyze? I overanalyze tautologies. I get into so many arguments about the laws of logic that I think I just overanalyze tautologies. Yeah, I'm trying to think of other subjects that we could go, but I have not only have I enjoyed this, I think it was a good conversation.
Yeah, no, I feel very satisfied myself. I usually like to take a break after a while when I discuss like complicated topics like this, because my head gets all mushy and weird, and I stop absorbing things, which is not good. But yeah, I appreciate this a lot, and you've been lovely to talk to. You're a great listener and very wise and intelligent. Thank you very much.
You've been a great listener, and I have really enjoyed the subjects and questions you brought up. Anything else before maybe we dip out?
No, no. If there's anything, I'll let you know. But for now, I'm very happy.
Cool. Well then, Capy, it was lovely talking with you. I truly did have a lovely discussion, and look forward to many more good ones.
Yeah, I'll see you around in the text chat or wherever else we may meet. But
Out
have a
there
good
in
one,
life.
mate.
Bye,
Likewise,
Capy.
likewise.
Cool. Okay. That was fun. He seemed like a mensch. He seemed like a nice guy. I had a feeling this wasn't going to be confrontational. That's why I put that asterisk on at the beginning. Seemed like a really nice guy, and it was good to get some of those subjects talked about, because it is odd in that when I used to ignore it, when I used to say, well, they tell me, stop talking about identity politics. That's all you care about is identity politics. And for a decade, I just sat there just saying, God doesn't exist. God doesn't exist. But it hasn't slowed down the identity politics. If anything, it's gotten worse. Though sometimes I see it getting better. I see people starting to truly understand. It was Southern Love, Ian Davenport, Davey, Moon, everybody who stuck around, Adam Cube. All right. I am gonna send love out there. Capy was my panel tonight. He invited me to have that discussion. This was an impromptu debate. You ended up being an impromptu conversation. You, but I like that too. Yeah. I'm gonna take a quick look to see if anyone else has anything to say or anything is live. I don't think any atheist is live right now. It is the middle of the week. Oh, I've been enjoying summer. Boys, girls, everything in between. And I see some great comments in there. I think I'm gonna flash you guys up on the screen as we are heading out. I am going to send love to my co-host James W. We are planning for Thursday, trying to work on our episode, but this has been Impromptu Debate You featuring Capy. Please don't forget to like, follow, subscribe. I said it, YouTube. I said it. You can let them go now. And then hit that premiere button, that bell icon, to also you can see our premieres. I'm getting ahead of myself. Or join our live streams. Or hey, why not leave a comment once the video is done? There have been many awesome people sending love to who knows who they are. They don't need any mention, but I can't help it. I love them so much. Sending love to everyone out there. And yes, do. You can also see our Discord at our channel link down below, along with all of our fantastic channel members. Though the best way to help us make even more content is to go to patreon.com/Amy Newman. I'm Amy Newman, and along with James W., we will see you all on the next episode of Skeptic Ball Z. Good night, everyone. Mwah. Ha ha ha.